Varaha Purana Part 3 Amavasya. Amavasya is the night of the new moon and is set aside for honoring the Tanmatras. The Tanmatras were born from Brahma's body. They lived in the sky, meditated and survived on the juice of the Soma herb. Brahma requested the Tanmatras to take upon themselves the role of being ancestors Pitri to all living beings. On Amavasya Tithi, people therefore make offerings of water, sesame seeds and sanctified grass to their dead ancestors. This ceremony is known as Pitritarpana, and it brings contentment and the attainment of desires. Purnamasi or Purnima is the night of the full moon and is associated with the moon god Chandra, also known as Soma. Chandra was the son of the sage Atri. Chandra was married to 27 of Daksha's daughters. These were the nakshatra star. Chandra was however inordinately fond of Rohini and neglected his other wives in comparison. The other wives went and complained about the treatment to their father, Daksha. Despite his father-in-law's warning, Chandra continued to favor Rohini. This angered Daksha and he cursed his son-in-law that he would gradually waste away. The moon became China and ultimately vanished entirely on the night of Amavasya. Medicine helps thrives in the presence of the moon. When the moon disappeared, these herbs wilted and lost all their potency. The gods restored to Vishnu, and Vishnu advised them to churn the ocean. Mount Meru was to be used as the churning rod, and the great snake Vasuki was to be used as a rope for churning. Churning of the ocean Samudra is a favorite story of the Puranas, but better sources are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The real reason for the churning of the ocean was actually slightly different. It was expected that the churning of the ocean would wield Amrita, a life-giving drink. The gods and the demons collaborated in this venture. The churning rod was however Mount Mandara and not Mount Meru. But because Mandara had no base, the mountain began to move and the churning could not go on. Vishnu thereupon adopted the form of a turtle, Kurma. Mount Mandara was placed on the back of the turtle and the churning proceeding. The first object to emerge as a result of the churning was a terrible poison. Shiva swallowed this so that no one else might be affected and thus became blue of throat. Nilakantha. To return to the Varaha Purana, the juice of the Soma herb emerged as a result of the ocean being churned. This Soma juice was none other than Chandra, and Shiva accepted the crescent moon as an adornment for her head. Everyone was happy. This entire event took place on the day of Purnamasi. On this day, a vrata should be observed. Before the vrata is completed, one must fast. One is however permitted to eat rice after the vrata has been completed. The observance of this vrata brings prosperity. The earth now asked the bow about the rites known as vratas. The bow explained that there were different types of vratas. Some involved celibacy and a devotion to the tirthas. Others involved chanting hymns and singing praises of the gods. Still others involved fasting is prescribed points of time. Many of vratas have stories associated with them. There is no point in time to recount all of them. We will tell you about a select few. The sage Durvasa used to know a hunter. He renamed the hunter Satyatapa as the hunter was righteous and had performed very difficult meditation. Durvasa told Satyatapa about a secret rite that the ass had observed when she had sunk into the depths of the ocean. This was known as Dvadashi Vrata. The observance of this has pleased Narayana so much that he had adopted the form of a bull so as to rescue the ass. This vrata began on Dvadashi Tithi in the month of Margashirsha. One had to observe certain norms of cleanliness and think of Narayana. One had to fast on the Ekadashi Tithi that followed, eat on the next day Dvadashi and go to sleep reciting incantation to Narayana. Early next morning one went to the river to bathe and anointed oneself with mud drawn from the river bank. Hymns were chanted to the ass, the water and Narayana. One also had to give alms. This vrata gave ignorant people the realization of the Brahman. Like the above vrata, Varaha Dvadashi vrata also yields desired results. This is observed on Dvadashi in the month of Magha. One should make an image of the bull, cover it with white clothing and place it on essen pot. One should not only worship the image during the day, one should also chant hymns to it, staying away the whole night for the purpose. There are several other vratas that should be observed on Dvadashi Tithi. Rama Dvadashi in the month of Jyeshtha, Krishna Dvadashi in the month of Ashada, and Buddha Dvadashi in the month of Shravana are examples. Kanti Vrata was observed by the moon god Chandra to counter Dasha's curse that he would waste away. Shukla Paksha is that lunar fortnight during which the moon wakes, Krishna Paksha being the lunar fortnight during which the moon wanes. Kanti Vrata begins in the month of Kartika, on Dvitya Tithi in Shukla Paksha. One has to worship Krishna and Balarama and donate salve, image of the moon. Avigna Vrata was observed by Shiva before killing the demon Tripura Asura and by the sage Agastya before drinking up the ocean. Chaturthi Tithi in the month of Falguna is a time when incantations have to be addressed to Ganesha as part of the Vrata. On the Panchami that follows, a golden image of Ganesha has to be worshipped with chickened milk, sesame seeds and flowers, and donated to worthy Brahmans. This vrata removes all obstacles from one's path. Kama vrata is associated with the Panchami Tithi in the month of Pusha, during the Shukla Paksha. Skanda is worshipped. The first person to observe this vrata was King Nala. Shanti Vrata is associated with the Panchami Tithi during Shukla Paksha and in the month of Kartika. This rite frees the devotee from all family discord. As part of the Vrata, one has to give up all hot food for the space of 1 year. And a golden image of the great snake Shesha has to be donated at the conclusion of the Vrata. Erogya Vrata enabled King Anaranya to get rid of the leprosy that he had been cursed with. Putreshti Vrata enabled King Surasena to obtain a son. In this Vrata one has to feed milk and yogurt to Brahmanas and think of the young Krishna playing in Yashoda's lap. There now suddenly follows a discussion between King Bharadvaja and sage Agastya on the nature of the 4 Yugas. In Kali Yuga, the system of the 4 Varnas classes and the 4 Ashrama stages in life gets completely destroyed, and humanity also moves towards certain destruction. In Satya Yuga, Sattva Guna, or the quality of goodness, is the predominant quality. In fact, it is the only quality. In Treta Yuga, Sattva Guna becomes contaminated with Rajas Guna, the quality of passion. But Sattva Guna continues to be more important than Raja Guna. In Dvapara Yuga, Raja Guna becomes more important than Sattva Guna. In Kali Yuga Tamas Guna, the quality of evil and darkness alone prevails, with evil becoming dominant and varnas and ashramas getting mixed up. The way to obtain pardon for one's sin is through meditation, prayers, studying the holy text, performing sacrifice and giving alms. But without true devotion, mere sacrificial ceremonies alone cannot lead to the attainment of Narayana. Narayana Lila is truly wonderful, as the sage Narada discovered it on many occasions. A Lila means fanciful and magical display of divine power. Shiva himself announced that Narayana is the first and the foremost among all the gods. He has the first right to all offerings that are made. Through Kali Yuga was created by Narayana, the curse of the sage Gautama is also important in understanding why Kali Yuga had to come about. If that curse had not been there, the nature of Kali Yuga would have been quite different. The sage Gautama had obtained a boon from Narayana that rice and fruits would always be plentiful with him. In a time of severe drought, he used this boon to feed many sages at his hermitage in Mount Shatashringa. The sages were only too happy to be thus relieved in a time of general famine. But the moment the situation improved, they decided to leave Gautama's hermitage without even bothering to ask the sages' permission. They even went further than that. They hit upon a deceitful trick to make it look as if they were leaving the hermitage because of a sin that Gautama had committed. It would then seem that it had become essential for them to leave. The deceitful sages used their powers to create a magical cow. This they then placed it in the hermitage so that Gautama would easily see it. Gautama was pleased to see the cow in his hermitage and offered it some water. But as soon as he did this, the cow fell down as if it was dead. It was of course nothing but a trick that had been planned by the other sages. On seeing that Gautama had fallen into their trap, the deceitful sages accused him of killing a cow. This was terrible sin, and the sages used this as a pretext for leaving Gautama's hermitage. As penance for his supposed sin, Gautama went to the Himalayas and prayed to Shiva. Pleased at the sage prayers, Shiva gave Gautama a strand of his matted hair. Gautama brought this back to his hermitage, and from the hair flowed out the sacred river Godavari Ganga. At the touch of its waters, the dead cow revived, and it was only now that the Gautama realized that he had been tricked by the deceitful sages. The 7 great sages Saptarishi had come to Gautama's hermitage to admire the wonderful new river that Gautama had created by Shiva's grace. In the presence of the 7 great sages, Gautama cursed the wicked sages. You will no longer be regarded as Brahmanas, he told them. You will no longer be permitted to perform the religious rite of the Vedas. The sages begged Gautama to reduce the severity of the curse. But Gautama told them that the only person who could do this was Shiva himself. The sages therefore went to meet Shiva in Mount Kailasa, and Shiva modified the condition of the curse. As a penance for their sin, it was now decided that the evil sages would be born as the liars and cheats in Kali Yuga. But Kali Yuga is going to be a terrible time, pleaded the sages. Please give us something that will make the burden more bearable for us. Shiva gives the sages a text known as the Shiva Samhita. He also told them that not all of them would be born as evil men. Some of them would be good conduct. But the majority of them would be evil and would end up in hell. This is curse that lies behind Kali Yuga. Vishnu is superior to Brahma and Shiva. In Vishnu, Sattva Guna alone is embodied. Brahma is a mixture of Sattva Guna and Raja Guna. And all the three qualities of Sattva, Raja and Tama Guna are to be found in Shiva. Shiva himself acknowledged Vishnu's supremacy. At the time of creation, Brahma asked Shiva to create. To prepare himself for this difficult task, Shiva decided to meditate under the water. Under the water, Shiva came across a form of Narayana which was only the size of a thumb in the stature. Ignoring this miniature form, Shiva began his meditation. As the meditation progressed, 11 fiery forms appeared before Shiva. Shiva asked them who they were, but they vanished without bothering to reply. A brilliant and resplendent form then appeared before Shiva. "Who are you?" asked Shiva. "I am Narayana, and the water is my abode," was the reply. "The 11 forms which appeared before you were the 11 Adityas. You are able to see me now because I have granted you divine sight. You may be powerful and omniscient and worshipped by the other gods, but without my grace you too cannot see me." Having said this, Narayana first assumed a miniature form that was only the size of a thumb in stature. He then blew himself up until his form became gigantic and his head disappeared into the clouds. After displaying his powers to Shiva, Narayana suddenly disappeared. But as a result of what he had witnessed, Shiva was forced to declare that Narayana was the supreme god. The Adityas were the son of Aditi, Kashyapa's wife. The word Aditya is used as a general description for all the gods other than Brahmas, Vishnu and Shiva. It is also sometimes used in the specific sense of there being 12 Adityas, not 11. It was the Rudras which were 11 in number. I will now describe for you the Bhuvana Kosha, the boat told the ass. To continue with the act of creation, Brahma divided himself into two. One part was male and was known as Swayambhu Manu. The other part was female and was known as Shatarupa. 100 forms in translation. Swayambhu Manu had two sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapada. Priyavrata had 10 sons. Their names were Agnitra, Agnivahu, Mekha, Medhatidhi, Jyotishmana, Dhruva, Havya, Dyutimana, Vapushmana, and Shravana. Priyavrata ruled over the entire earth. When it became time to retire to the forest, he divided the earth into 7 regions, Dvipas, and distributed the regions among 7 of his sons. These sons were Agnidra, Medhatidhi, Jyotishmana, Dyutimana, Havya, Vapushmana, and Shravana. Jambudvipa has many towns and villages in it. The 7 regions into which the world was divided were named Jambudvipa, Shakadvipa, Kraunchadvipa, Shaumalidvipa, Gamedadvipa, Plakshadvipa, and Pushkaradvipa. Jambudvipa, it is rich in hills, minerals, trees, and rivers that irrigated its fields. It is bordered by the sea on the east and the west, and by the mountain on the north and the south. The region derives its name from jambu, trees whose fruits fall into the waters of the rivers and sweeten it to make an elixir that confers immortality on those who drink it. Jambudvipa is divided into 7 regions or varshas. One of these regions is Bharatavarsha. It is so named because of ruler named Manu rules over it and nurtured it. An alternative explanation is that Agnitra had a descendant named Bharata, from whom the region obtained its name. Bharatavarsha itself is divided into the 9 regions. In these regions live the four Varnas, but outside its confines live Yavanas, Tirthas and Mlechas. These are people who do not believe in the Vedas or in the Varna system. The conqueror of the whole of Bharatavarsha is known as Samrata, Emperor. These are 7 major mountain ranges in Bharatavarsha. Their names are Mahendra, Malaya, Sakya, Shaktimana, Rikshavana, Vindhya and Paripatra. There can also be found several rivers like Ganga, Sindhu, Saraswati, Vipasha, Chandrabhaga, Saraya, Iravati, Gamati, Gandaki, Vegavati, Yamuna, Shipra, Godavari, Vaitarani, Kumudvati, Mandakini and Tamraparni. Within Bharatavarsha can be found the habitation of men and kingdoms like Kuru, Panchala, Shauva, Shurasena, Matsya, Kirata, Kuntala and Kalinga. The S asked, which is the way in which man can atone for his sins? By worshipping me in the prescribed way, replied the bull. In the prescribed way, one should clean oneself, light a lamp on a stand, recite holy incantation, anoint the ground with a cow dung and base Vishnu's image with a clarified butter. Flowers, garlands, incense, cereals and milk should be offered to the image. The most important offering that Vishnu wants is harvested through devotion. There are also means by which one can ensure that one is not born as an animal in subsequent life. Being righteous, observing vratas, and referring one's parents are some of them. In addition, anyone who happens to die in the holy tirtha known as Kamakkhya is never born as an animal or bird in his next life. Here is the story behind it. In ancient times, a hawk once swooped down on the fish caught by a fisherman. But the hawk could not bear the fish weight once it had risen up into the sky with the fish. It fell to the ground and died. Subsequently, the fish was reborn as the prince of a kingdom named Anandapura. The hawk was reborn as a beautiful princess and was married to the prince. But after a while, the prince began to suffer from terrible headache. They obtained the permission of their parents and went to visit Kamakkhya. There they prayed to Vishnu and thanks to Vishnu's grace remembered the incidents of their early lives. The prince realized that as fish he had fallen from the sky and had struck his head against the ground. That was the reason why he suffered from headache in his next life. By praying to Vishnu, the prince and the princess attained salvation. That is the reason why Kamakkhya is a famous tirtha. In addition, there are prescribed forms of penance for some specific sins. Some of the sins and their corresponding atonements are as follows. If a devotee happens to pray to Vishnu with his mouth unwashed, all the punya that he may have acquired early is lost. To atone for this sin, the devotee has to sleep without a cover directly under the sky for 7 nights in succession in the bitter winter cold. Fasting is a penance for worshipping Vishnu in unclean state, for example after touching a dead body or after returning from the cremation ground. If one touches Vishnu's image without following the prescribed rituals, one causes displeasure to Vishnu. The penance is to face the east, rub one's hands and feet with a mud and clean them and then meditate. Normally it is a sin to accept rice offered by king. This is because a king has to perform unacceptable acts by the mere fact of being a ruler. Rice can be accepted from a king only if the king constructs a temple, installs a consecrated image of the Vishnu in the temple, prepares food in an appropriated vessel, offers the cooked food first to the Vishnu and then distributes the sanctified food amongst people. If one partakes of food that has not been thus consecrated, the atonement involves fasting for 6 nights in succession. One can alternatively live on a coconut of water, milk, and the clarified butter for 3 days and fast for 1 day. Fasting is also the penance if one makes the mistake of worshipping Vishnu, while dressed in red or black or in unclean clothes. One who does not clean or purify himself after returning from a cremation ground has to sleep under the open sky on a prickly grass for a period of 1 week. For the period he is entitled to eat merely 1/4 of his normal quota of food. The bow next tells the S about Maya, illusion. The mysteries of Maya are unfathomable. Not everyone can learn about its true nature. In fact, everything other than Vishnu himself is Maya. The bow recounted the story of a Brahmana to illustrate the point. This was a Brahmana named Somasharma, who was devoted to Vishnu. He fasted, observed vratas, and performed tapasya in a place named Haridvara. When Vishnu appeared before him and offered to grant him a boon, Somasharma wished that he might get to know the true nature of Maya. Vishnu tried to dissuade him, but the Brahmana was adamant. He would have the boon and no other. Vishnu asked Somasharma to bathe in the river that flowed nearby. The Brahmana left his clothes, his water pot, and his stick on the banks of the river and dived into the water. He was born as the daughter of a Nishada, a low-caste hunter. In course of time, this woman married another Nishada from the same tribe and became the mother of 3 sons and 4 daughters. She spent 50 years with the Nishada tribe, having forgotten all about her life as Somasharma. One day Vishnu came and took the woman to the banks of the river and asked her to bathe in it. She left her clothes on the bank of the river and dived deep into the water. When she emerged, she was transformed back into the Brahmana Somasharma. The Brahmana Somasharma had several sages and hermits as his neighbors. When he returned after having apparently had his bath, all these sages and hermits crowded around him. "What took you so long today?" they asked. "You never take this long for a bath." But Somasharma remembered his life as a Nishada woman and was struck with remorse. He kept thinking of the evil deeds that he had committed as Nishada, of the acts that were not deserved of a Brahmana. In utter confusion, Somasharma went and sat down on the bank of the river and contemplated his miseries. When his wife did not return after having her bath, the Nishada who was Somasharma's wife in his female incarnation came to the river and found his wife's clothes lying there. He concluded that his wife had drawn it and began to lament her death. Somasharma could not bear this lamentation and did his best to console the husband. He told the Nishada to go home and look after the children and to control himself for the sake of the offsprings. In fact, he decided to tell the Nishada the entire story. But when he started to do so, he found that Nishada disappeared. And when he looked for the Nishada village, he could not find that everything had vanished. Vishnu now appeared before Somasharma and told him that he had been deluded by Maya. He had not been born into a Nishada household at all. Neither had he begun a wife and a mother. Unfathomable indeed are the mysteries of Maya. One should therefore never wish to understand of the nature of Maya. It was beyond human comprehension. Somasharma had made the mistake of wishing to comprehend Maya and had to pay the price in terms of the miseries that he had gone through. The reason why Somasharma had to undergo all this suffering was that in a previous birth, he had once failed to show obeisance to a righteous Brahmana. After Vishnu had vanished, Somasharma went to a tirtha named Kubja Mraka and yielded up his life through harsh meditation. At the earth's request, the bow now told her about the various tirthas, sacred place. When the sage Ravya went through intense meditation, Vishnu appeared before him in the place known as Kubjamraka. The word Kubja means bend and Amra is mango tree. Vishnu appeared before Ravya in the form of a mango tree. Vishnu's weight was so great that the mango tree was bent down. That explains why the tirtha is known as a Kubjamraka. A person who bathes there or dies there is immediately liberated. Manasa and Maya are the tirthas near Kubjamraka. If one meditates at Sarvakalika Tirtha, one gets to enjoy a long stay in a heaven. There is a hot water spring in the place named Purnamukha. If one bathes there, one gets to live in the abode of the moon for a very long time. Thereafter, one is born into a Brahmana family. Varaha Kshetra is a very holy place, because that is the place where Varaha rescued the ass from the water. Chakra Tirtha is the same neighborhood, and one who meditates there is born into a noble family. Soma Tirtha is not very far off. There Chandra meditated and attained the power to yield Soma. In Treta Yuga, Somadatta, the prince of Kampilya, shot off a vixen in Varaha Kshetra. So holy was the Tirtha that the vixen which died there was born as the princess of Kashi in its next birth. Somadatta also shot a vulture in Varaha Kshetra, and the vulture was subsequently born as the prince of Kalinga. In yet another case, a bird died in Varaha Kshetra and was subsequently reborn into a rich and respected Vaishya family. Akhetaka and Gridhavata are two tirthas that are near Varaha Kshetra. People who die there get to live in Indraloka, or Indra's abode in heaven. Vaivasvata is a holy place where the sun god meditated for 1,000 years. A person who visits Vaivasvata Tirtha does not have to visit Yama after his death. Vishnu is always present in Kokamukha Tirtha. Vadarika Ashrama is near Kokamukha and is in the Himalayas. It contains Brahma Kunda, in whose snows Vishnu always resides. Only the righteous can hope to reach Vadarika Ashrama, or one's desires are fulfilled if one visits it or bathes there. Vishnu himself meditates in Badarika Ashrama, and meditation there automatically leads to Vishnu Loka. Vishnu's abode in heaven. Near Badarika Ashrama is a tirtha named Matsya Shiva. The river Kaushika flowers past this place. This tirtha is so holy that the sight of a fish there is equivalent to catching sight of Vishnu himself. There are 5 streams in Panchashikha Tirtha. Bathing in these streams earns as much of punya as can be earned by performing an Ashwamedha Yajna, horse sacrifice. Mandara is another holy place. It is in Vindhya range. There is a Mandara tree that flowers there on Dvadashi and Chaturdashi days. Vishnu lives there, and a person who sees the flowering tree attains salvation. Vishnu is also always present in Shyamantaka Tirtha on Mount Meru. Through Prapana and Vaikuntha Karana flower streams that are so holy that anyone who bathes in them is cleansed of all sins. In the place named Shalagrama, Vishnu is present in the form of a black Shalagrama stone. There is a golden image of Vishnu in Lohar Gawa Tirtha. This was the place where Vishnu destroyed a large number of demons with his Sudarshana chakra. One who practiced asceticism in Lohargawa tirtha attains great punya. Vishnu's favorite tirtha is, however, Mathura, and the Varaha Purana describes the glory of Mathura. At the great lengths, Vishnu incarnated himself as Krishna in Mathura. In that sense, it is the abode of Vishnu. Its holiness is greater than that of Naimisharanya, Prayaga, Pushkara, and even Varanasi. Vinduka, Vishranti, and Kampilya are important places in Mathura. A barber who lived in Kampilya bathed in the Yamuna and was born as a Brahmana in his next life. A cruel and a low-caste hunter used to live in Naimisharanya. On Chaturdashi Tithi, he went to Mathura and decided to bathe in the Yamuna. He drowned in the river and was reborn as the Kshatriya king Yakshamadhanu, or Saurashtra. He ruled for 70 years and had many queens, 7 sons and 5 daughters. One night, as Yakshamadhanu lay sleeping, his favorite wife, Pivari, heard her husband sigh and moan. When Pivari texted him with the reason, the king told her that he would tell her the reason only if she would let him hand over the kingdom to the eldest prince, give up the royal style of life, and accompany him to Mathura. They did so, and on reaching Mathura, devotedly worshipped the god and observed religious rites. After some days had passed, Pivari asked Yakshamadhanu why he had sighed and moaned in his sleep. On her own part, she told her husband her story. In her early life, she had been crossing the Yamuna and had fallen into the river and died. So holy was the Yamuna that she was reborn as the princess of Kashi and married Yakshamadhanu. The king told his wife that he had sighed and moaned because he had remembered Mathura from an early life and had wished to go there. The couple stayed in Mathura and eventually died there. They immediately went to heaven. In Mathura, especially holy places are Madhuvana, Kundavana, Kamyakavana, Mahavana, Vrindavanavana, Vimalakunda, Nagatirtha, Manasa, and Gantabharana. Vana means forest. Akrura Tirtha in Mathura is a favorite resort of Vishnu. One who bathes there obtains punya equivalent to the punya obtained from performing in Rajasuya Yajna, royal sacrifice. A person who performs funeral rites there immediately liberates his dead ancestors. In Akrura Tirtha lived a wealthy Vaishya named Sudhanu. His neighbor Agnidatta was a chief, and when Agnidatta died, he became a demon. Subhanu was a devotee of Vishnu and used to sing and dance in front of Vishnu image in a temple. One night Subhanu was going to the temple to sing and dance, but the demon caught hold of him and threatened to eat him up. Promising to return after he had worshipped Vishnu, Subhanu went to the temple. Vishnu tried to dissuade Subhanu from returning to the demon, but Subhanu would not go back on his word. The demon was so pleased and Subhanu stuck to his promise that he promised to let the Vaishya go if Subhanu would transfer to the demon all the punya that he had obtained through singing and dancing in front of Vishnu's image. So great was this punya that as soon as Subhanu handed it over, the demon was freed from its predicament. If one offers oblations to one's dead ancestors in a Mathura or circumambulates the city, one attains great punya. But circumambulation has to be done on foot. A prince once began to circumambulation of horseback and with an attendant. In the course of the trip, the prince, the attendant, and the horse died. The host and the attendant were instantly liberated, but not the prince. Since Haya means host and Mukti means liberation, this part of Mathura is known as Haya Mukti. There are several other holy spots in Mathura. Govardhana is to the west of Mathura. It bears an image of the bull incarnation known as Kapila Varaha. This image was first constructed by the sage Kapila. From Kapila the image passed on to Indra Ravana, the king of Lanka, defeated Indra and obtained the image. It was next acquired by Rama after he defeated Ravana. Rama's brother Shatrughna was dispatched by Rama to suppress a demon named Lavana, who was causing havoc to Mathura. Having disposed of Lavana, Shatrughna asked for the image as a reward and instated it in Mathura. Worshipping the Kapila Varaha image is far better than worshipping at many other minor tirthas. Shakra Tirtha is near Govardhana, and it is associated with the story of how Krishna humbled Indra. The inhabitants of Mathura had been in the habit of worshipping Indra. Krishna advised them to stop paying homage to Indra. In retaliation, Indra threatened to flood Mathura with rain, and Krishna held aloft the Govardhana mountain and protected the inhabitants. There is another story to illustrate how important a tirtha Mathura is. There was a Vaishyu named Supadha, who had not performed any good deeds in his life. When he died, he became a ghost, vrata. The ghost lived in the hollow of the tree. It once managed to catch hold of another Vaishyu named Vipadha, who happened to be passing by. Vipadha was a resident of Mathura. He was also a righteous person who served his parents well, gave alms and offered oblation to his dead ancestors. The host asked Vipadha to perform oblation for him as well, so that he might be freed. As soon as this was done, Supadha was freed. Oblation performed by residents of Mathura never failed to wield the desired benefit. There is a tirtha named Ashikunda in Mathura, and that too has a story associated with it. There used to be a king named Sumati. Sumati decided to visit all the tirthas, but before he could complete this tour, he fell ill and died. The kingdom passed to his son Vimati. The sage Narada told Vimati that it was his duty as a son to complete the task that his father had set out to perform. He should complete this tour of the tirthas and hand over the punya thus acquired to his dead father. But instead of visiting all the tirthas, Vishnu began to live in Mathura. He regarded this as being far superior to visiting all of the other tirthas. The other tirthas felt threatened and pleaded with Vishnu. In response, Vishnu cut off Vimati's head with the sword Asi. The place where this event took place became a tirtha named Ashikunda. All of Mathura is holy with the mark of Vishnu footsteps. Krishna spent many years in Mathura. Vishnu's touch is everywhere in Mathura. Garuda once went to visit Mathura and found that all its inhabitants looked like Vishnu to him. He prayed for Vishnu to manifest himself and end his delusion. Vishnu appeared and told Garuda that all inhabitants of Mathura were his mirror image. The Varaha Purana has several other anecdotes and stories about the importance of Mathura. The point of all these stories is to illustrate that there is no tirtha that is superior to Mathura. The bow next tells the S about initiation ceremonies and various mantras. There is nothing particularly interesting about this section and we will skip them. To build an image out of stone, a clear and a superior stone has to be chosen. The stone should first be worshipped with the praise and offerings of rice, incense, sandalwood and lamps. A linga and a shalagrama are images of Shiva and Vishnu respectively. Among images made out of wood and images made out of the wood of the Mathura tree is the best. When making an image out of a clay, attention must be paid so that the clay does not crack. Images can also be made out of metals and alloys like copper and bronze. When making an image out of any material, the material must first be purified and sanctified. After the image has been made, it should be anointed with a red sandalwood paste. It must also be decorated with flowers, and incantation must be recited in front of the image. It is prohibited to worship an odd number of images in any household. For example, the worship of 3 shalagramas or 3 images of Ganesha or Durga is not permitted. An image with its broken or lax limbs should never be worshipped, but a shalagrama image with secular marks can be worshipped even if it does not happen to be whole. While there is no such restriction on the worship of a linga, a shalagrama cannot be worshipped by low or unclean people. The worship of a shalagrama is of exceptional importance. The bow next describes duties towards the dying and the dead. When a person is about to die, hymns from the Vedas should recite it to him, and pure honey should be poured into his lips. After death, the dead body must be placed under a tree and bathed. It should then be anointed with the oil, clarified butter, incense, and fragrance. When the funeral pyre is lit, it is always the head to which the fire must be first applied. When the body has been completely burned, the funeral pyre should be circumambulated. Funeral rituals should then be observed. Those who go to the cremation ground must bathe and wash their clothes before returning home. For 10 days following the day of death, a state of uncleanness has to be observed. No religious rites are to be observed during the period. But rituals like bathing in the river and offering oblation to one's dead ancestors should not be discontinued. On the certain day after death, brahmanas have to be invited and given cooked food to eat. They must also be donated umbrellas, footwear, incense and lamps. The brahmana who conducts this funeral ceremony shraddha must be pure of body and mind. The prescribed rules for a shraddha ceremony are more or less the same for all the 4 classes. The bow related a story to illustrate how offering one's respects to one's dead ancestors assures their health and happiness in the existence after death. King Chandrasena and Queen Chandraprabha ruled in Mathura, and Prabhavati was a maid at their court. Members of Prabhavati's family were evil and never performed funeral ceremonies for their deceased relatives. Where there was a holy place named Tirtha, a sage once encountered a person named Agasti there. Agasti was in a thin and emaciating state and looked quite miserable. Agasti was in effect dead and was merely a spirit. There were several other dead people who had also gathered in Tirtha. Some of them looked happy and were full of blessing for their descendant on earth. They arrived at Tirtha in shining vimanas. Others, like Agasti, were emaciated and arrived after a great deal of hardship. They cursed them descendant on earth because of the tortures they had to undergo in hell. They were suffering thus because of their descendants' acts of omission. Agasti explained to the sage that a funeral ceremony performed well and with the due respect brought punya to the performer. It has also helped the ancestor for whom the shraddha was being performed. It is the absence of a funeral ceremony. The ancestors suffered. They also suffered if the shraddha was performed irreverently. or perfunctorily. In such case, demons and snakes had the right to funeral offerings, and the dead ancestors obtained nothing. The thin and emaciated-looking ancestors had not been honored with the funeral ceremonies. Alternatively, the ceremonies had been improperly performed, so the demons and snakes had taken away all their offerings. Such ancestors kept looking forward to someone being born in their respective families so that an appropriate funeral ceremony might be performed. Agastya also revealed that he was Prabhavati's ancestor. The sage narrated that he had heard to Chandrasena and Chandraprabha. Prabhavati and her daughter Virupakanidhi were forcibly sent to Dhruva Tirtha and made to perform a Shraddha ceremony there. Agastya's appearance improved instantly. A Vimana arrived and took Agastya up to heaven. The Varaha Purana describes the story of Nachiketas. Irritating at the many questions Nachiketa kept asking him, his father, the sage Udavaka, once let slip the words, "Go to hell, go to Yama's abode." Udavaka soon repented his hasty words, but Nachiketa took his father's words at the face value. He would not let them be falsified. In spite of Udavaka's attempts to dissuade him, Nachiketa would not budge from his decision to go Yamaraja abode. He did manage to reach Yama's abode, and so impressed was Yama by Nachiketa's courage and dedication to the truth that he warmly welcomed Nachiketa. Nachiketa spent a few days as Yama's guest and asked Yama many searching questions. You must of course have realized that Nachiketa had gone to Yama without having actually died. After spending some days with Yama, Nachiketa returned to his father with the answers to his questions. The news of Nachiketa's return spread far and wide, and many sages assembled at Udavaka's hermitage to share in the wonderful knowledge that Nachiketa had gained. After imparting to the world what he had directly learned from Yama, Nachiketa went back to his own meditation. The boa revealed the earth that Nachiketa had learned and satisfied her curiosity about Yama and his abode. After death, it is to Yama that people go. The first river that they have to cross on their journey, they call it Pushpadaka. Its water is golden, and it has golden sand banks. The second river to be crossed, the longest in that region, is the clear-watered Vaivasvati. Tall buildings and well-constructed houses mark Yamapuri. The city has a beautiful hall where the learned meet, but Yama's city also contains demons and other terrible creatures. Towards the west of the city is a gate which it is agony to pass. It is through this gate that is evil and the wicked enter Yama's city. Towards the south of the city are the torture chambers for the sinners. Yama's attendants, Yamadutas, take the sinners to the hell, Narakas, where they are to be tortured and punished. They are kicked and beaten and boiled in cauldrons of hot oil. They are then cast into flaming fire. In Yama's city there is a sharp shaumali tree with sharp leaves. On these leaves sinners are impaled. One of Yama's attendants, named Kushmanda, feeds on the flesh of the sinners, and they are impaled on the tree. The bones are then thrown to wild animals to finish off. Then there are some metal statues of women. These are made fiery hot, and sinners who have been disrespectful towards women are made to embrace these statues. There is also a forest full of poisonous grass, in which sinners are let loose. There they are stung by venomous insects. Chidragupta is the Yama's assistant, and he keeps an account of the sin every individual has committed on earth. He accordingly recommends the appropriate punishment of Yama. The greater of the sin, the greater the torture. All the good and bad deeds get registered in Chitragupta's book of accounts. Those who are righteous, those who help others, those who do not indulge in harmful criticism of others, those who die in the battlefield, and those who sacrifice their lives for other people or for their motherland are not punished. Yama's attendants respectfully send them to heaven by shining vimans. One deeds determine whether one goes to hell, heaven, or is reborn on earth. In case of rebirth, it is deeds again which determine whether an individual is born as an insect, an animal, a bird, a tree, or human being. It is also deeds which determine what sort of human being one is born as. Even in the case of being sent to heaven, it is deeds which determine whether one is to go to Svarga Loka, Brahma Loka, Shiva Loka, or Vishnu Loka. Once the sage Narada went to Yama's abode and asked him to talk about various gifts and their significance. Nachiketa related this discussion to the sage who had come to Udalaka's hermitage to hear about his experience in the Yama's city. One who donates gifts attains objects of enjoyment, a wife, son, and good fortune. The gift of good brings good health, sharp intelligence, and an excellent memory. The gift of water fulfills all desires. Gifts of rice, water, fruits, clothes, and honey bring good fortune in this life and the next. If one donates incense, one attains Vasuloka or Goloka, two heavenly abodes. If one gives clarified butter or honey, one attains Vimanas. The giving of lamps saves one from darkness. Giving shelter to frightened creatures leads to the granting of all one's wishes. The gifting of Kaulas is of special significance, as a Kaula is useful to mankind in various ways. Reading the Varaha Purana or hearing it being read destroys one's sins, liberates one, and assuages the mind's sufferings. It also its son and grandsons. It yields many times the punya it usually yields if it is had in a tirtha. Reading one chapter of the Varaha Purana grants the same amount of punya as can be obtained from donating an healthy cow. Reading 10 chapters grants punya that it is equivalent of the punya obtaining from performing a huge sacrifice. Most importantly, the reading of the Varaha Purana pleases Narayana no end. Hari Om Tat Sat, Om Namo Narayanaya, Radhe Radhe.